Hey guys, Video Psych here. Now, I want to talk, of course, about this thing called the White Savior. Now, I will be kind of watching a video here, and right after I make this video, or get done with it, so to speak, I will put it in the description below, and a link. But, there's this kind of old notion, and this stems from, back in the slavery days for black people, a couple hundred years ago, I would say, where there was kind of this excuse back then of why they were taking these black people from, Africa, etc. And their notion was that they were trying to help these people, so to speak. That was the excuse back then. And so, over time, because of that, there's still this notion of, the white savior. And, they have also had, sometimes in movies, sometimes white people will, come to a black person's help sometimes. In a movie. Not that it never happens in real life, of course, but, this is also only, kind of strengthened the notion that, to some black people, that when they see a movie like this, they think, oh, so we can only do something if white people come to help us, so is kind of their, kind of what they're seeing out of a movie like that, or this kind of notion like that. And it's not really something that I completely agree with, but it's also not something that I completely disagree with either, at least from, their eyes, from what they're seeing, basically. I at least understandable, or I should say, I understand. Man, I'm twisting my words today, aren't I? I understand how somebody might look at something like this and think that way, if you get what I mean. Anyway, I'm really trying not to offend anybody when making this video. So here's the video here. It's about pretty close to 11 minutes long. I won't play the whole thing. Come on.
By definition, not rhetoric, is prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism directed against someone of a different race based on the belief that one's own race is superior. Now, what whites on the left claim to do is argue against discrimination and antagonism. However, they seem to leave out the entire prejudice portion. They continuously prejudge black people, considering us to be helpless, childlike victims who desperately need their help, thus making themselves out to be superior beings that are put here to help us unfortunate, inferior black folks out, one welfare case at a time.
I'll try to let him speak. Okay, come on.
Ami Horowitz conducted a few man-on-the-street interviews where he asked white liberals how voter ID laws could suppress the black vote. Their responses said a lot about how some white liberals view black people.
Because they're less likely to have state IDs.
Minority voters are less likely to have the kinds of IDs that have been described or required.
These type of people don't live in areas with easy access to DMVs or other places where they can get identification.
You can always get IDs you do over the internet. Does that also make it difficult for black people in particular?
Yeah, you have to have access to the internet. You have to be able to pay an internet service provider for certain fees.
Do you think that's harder for black people to go online?
Well, I feel like they don't have the knowledge of how it works.
A lot of people have smartphones, but you might not have data.
For most of the communities, they don't really know what is out there just because they're not aware or they're not informed.
I also think there's a repression of black voting with how if you're a convicted felon, you're not allowed to vote and everything. And when you look at swing states like Florida, that's a huge population of the African Americans.
This way of thinking about blacks in a way that's so demeaning and potentially harmful doesn't only reside in the minds of oblivious white college students on Berkeley's far left campus. It also clouds the minds of Democrat politicians and black leaders who organize protests to beg whites for their sympathy and help.
Say voting rights, the battle, we must fight, and we will win.
Of course, blacks on the left don't see it as begging, nor do they see how it makes us look pitiful. To them, it is something that we are owed for past grievances.
When we pass a stimulus budget, for instance, we need to specifically think about helping people who have been injured in our past because they've occupied a certain place in our country. That's what the world looks like to me. It's a consciousness thing, which we don't have at all right now.
But many blacks who actually lived in that horrible past didn't have nearly the same thoughts. Frederick Douglass was once asked, "What shall we do with the Negro?" To that, he simply replied, "I have had but one answer from the beginning. Do nothing with us. Your doing with us has already played the mischief with us. Do nothing with us. If the apples will not remain on the tree of their own strength, if they are worm-eaten at the core, if they are early ripe and disposed to fall, let them fall. I am not for tying or fastening them on the tree in any way, except by nature's plan. And if they will not stay there, let them fall. And if the Negro cannot stand on his own legs, let him fall also. All I ask is give him a chance to stand on his own legs. Let him alone." Frederick Douglass simply wished for blacks to have an opportunity to succeed on our own. He knew that the government's meddling would pose even more of a challenge for us, as it certainly does today. Yet, so many of us see power in victimhood.
If you can do this to a successful artist like Meek Mill, you can do this to many around the country. And that is why I wanted to come and why I wanted to say that he is representative of something far more than his stardom. He's a symbol of the abuse of the system.
Our minds seemingly have been washed with the liberal ideas of being needy and infantile, a people in need of a government parental figure to come and save us. So where do these ideas come from? One need look no further than Hollywood and the liberal media.
Stop the car. Big Mike. Hey, my name's Leanne Tui. My kids go to Wingate. You said you were going to the gym?
You guys remember this
School
movie?
gym's closed. Why were you going to the gym? Big Mike, why were you going to the gym?
Because it's warm.
Do you have any place to stay tonight? Don't you dare lie to me. Come on. Come on. SJ, make room. Get inside.
Put a white savior sign over her head. Nice.
The white savior character. She or he shows up regularly in some form or another in many Hollywood films. We've seen this character so frequently that it's etched itself into our conscious and subconscious minds. Hollywood absolutely loves these stories, making the same movie over and over again.
They have made it a lot.
Do you believe, sir, in justice, as you said?
I do.
Slavery is an evil that should befall none.
I believe so.
If you truly do, then I ask, I beg, that you write my friends in the North, acquainting them with my situation, and beseeching them to forward free papers. It would be an unspeakable happiness to see my wife,
It is a little quiet.
my family again.
My freedom is everything. The fact that I can walk out of here tomorrow brings me great pleasure. I like to doesn't mean much to anyone. It seems yours might mean a lot to a whole lot of people. I will write your letter, sir. And if it brings you your freedom, it will be more than a pleasure. It will have been my duty.
The more stories we see of the black victim, the better off the liberal media and left-wing politicians will fare. Where would they be without someone to help them look morally superior to those dastardly folks on the right who ask you to help yourselves? And since we know the media leans heavily to the left, as does Hollywood, who stands to benefit from all these images of blacks who can only do well if a white person is there to help them through the treacherous, racist American landscape? I think we all know the answer to that. The better question may be, why would we put our support behind a political system that does better when we are victims in need of their help versus one that wants us to help ourselves and does better when we actually do? Think of all.
Now, I'll stop the video there. There's a few more minutes left on it. But like I said, I will put it in the link. Or should I say, I should put the link below in the description when I'm done making this video. And so he kind of almost seems like he has a sense like black people are like almost like he's not part of this country. You know what I mean? When he's speaking at points, like he's separate from the U.S. almost. Like black people should just, just have their own rules, be free, and just, take care of themselves. And of course, I could at least understand why he is thinking this. Of course, that being said, he wouldn't be a United States citizen anymore. And he would then again would probably have to fight for his freedom and land while being on U.S. territory. Just like what happened with the natives. The natives never agreed to become U.S. citizens, which is why they never really got back their freedom, is because they eventually got taken over by the U.S., especially with such little numbers. It was basically like genocide for the natives because they never agreed to become U.S. citizens, and the people at the time were jackasses, basically, to the natives. But, of course, enough about the natives. So, again, like I said, he is kind of coming across this notion that black people weren't able to do anything, especially in the media, because white people came into play. And so, of course, his thought process is because of this, people think that, black people are seen as needy people that need to be saved, in short. And the one thing about, some of these movies, though, is that, sometimes when, you see somebody that is helping somebody, let's say a white person is helping somebody that's black, it is because, not just because they feel sorry for them, or not just because of that. It's also because, they see that something is going on that isn't right, so to speak. And that's, for one reason or another, they have been put into this impossible position where they need help, whether it's because they're black or not. And so, from what I've seen, at least from a lot of these movies, is they aren't just helping them just because they're just this helping needy black person that needs help. They're doing it because, one, they see that this person that needs help is a good person that just needs some help in the right direction. And two, why not help somebody if they are in need like that and they are willing to work for it, especially if they're willing to work for it, which in these movies, you have seen that these people are willing to work for, to get what they need. But for, again, one reason or another, they have not been able to obtain that. And three, is because they believe in them. they believe that they are a good person and that they are capable of doing what they're doing if only somebody just comes and helps them a little bit. And that's all that they need. Now, again, I at least understand why somebody like him would come to the notion that, black people have been kind of stigmatized by, our movies, so to speak, and possibly by the media. But I wouldn't say that's completely true. And I don't think really anybody just thinks of black people as just people that are needy and need help like they used to. Like I stated, back in the day when they were trying to get slaves, there was this notion that from white people back then that, they thought of them as, dumb, and inferior beings that needed help. And because that was the excuse at the time, that they were giving people back then. But of course, over the past couple hundred or so years, people have learned that, hey, black people are basically the same thing as us. The only difference is that they have a little more melanin in their skin to make their skin darker, and that's it. We're all human being here. We're the same thing, pretty much the same. There's like less than a percentage of a difference between, white people and black people. We're the same thing. And of course, with that being said, I will end this video. Of course, if you have any more comments, questions, etc., you can post them down. And again, I will put this video in the link below if you want to watch the whole thing or just rewatch it. And I'll see you guys later. Bye.